It's flying over the Pacific Ocean just to the southwest of Mexico, about to swing out over the central part of the United States. At the time of launch, though, it was right over North Carolina and actually passed right over the Cape minutes before flight. And we were able to get a couple of images down from the current Expedition 63 commander, Chris Cassidy. This picture is of that pad, 39A, at the Kennedy Space Center with Bob and Doug still on the launch pad, the rocket still there, taken 2 minutes before the launch.
That is
and
incredible.
He was able to send a couple of them down. So eagle eye for Chris Cassidy to snap these. We literally just got these down, so we wanted to share them with everybody. But the space station was flying directly over at the time of launch. We're almost at an hour and a half since launch, and it's already almost gone around the entire planet. Again, it's about to cross over the United States in the next couple of minutes. So that's what they're chasing down, and that's where you can kind of start to appreciate why this might take so long. When something is moving that quickly around planet Earth, it's not as easy as just kind of getting your car and going a couple miles. It takes a lot of energy, which means a lot of fuel, which can mean a lot of time to catch up to another spacecraft already in orbit.
Absolutely. And the fact that it is in orbit, the International Space Station in orbit around Earth, is really critical to understand there, because in reality, Bob and Doug are only going 250 miles up. So that's basically the distance from Los Angeles to San Francisco. So when you think about, even though it does take them a long time to catch up to the International Space Station, it's because it's going so fast, and they have to go around planet Earth a number of times in order to chase it down. But in reality, they are not. They are above Earth only about 250 miles, which I believe is a pretty relatable distance for everyone in terms of understanding just how far up they go.
All right, well, we are just about 6 minutes away from the start of that manual flight test. We'll hang out for a couple of minutes. Hopefully we see inside the capsule again shortly, and then we'll be joining Bob and Doug as they take the reins of Dragon for the very first time.
Yeah, and that timer for the suit drying, we should be getting confirmation of that.
SpaceX Dragon for suit drying.
There we go.
Dragon, go ahead.
Jay, our timer shows about 23 minutes for suit drying, and we're holding in 5 Bravo decimal 7 if you're happy with us shutting off the suit fan.
Yeah, we concur on the timer, and we are go for you to shut off the suit fan.
We should be just about 5 minutes or so from that manual flight test. Again, we're just standing by and hopefully getting those views back inside Dragon with Bob and Doug shortly. If you are just now joining us, we did launch successfully, 3:22 p.m. Eastern time. So it was a flawless ride uphill. We got them right into their initial orbit. We've already done the first of our 5 major burns to get to the International Space Station, that phase burn being done successfully on time. We're standing by for the manual flight test coming up in the next couple of minutes.
SpaceX Dragon, you guys are welcome back on board anytime.
Copy all. Yeah, we'll be setting up for the manual piloting demo shortly.
Okay, so that was Bob and Doug giving the okay for us to turn the cameras back on inside of Crew Dragon. And I did hear in one of the previous commands earlier that...
and Jay, just a quick tag up. The detectors are all confirmed off OFF.
Copy, confirmed off.
I did hear earlier that they got the okay to unstow the floater cam. So maybe if we're lucky, we might get a little bit of a hello from Bob and Doug. Fingers crossed.
It's going to be incredible to see this flight test, though, because, I mean, imagine if you were sitting in the cockpit of like an F-18 the first time somebody flew it or something. I mean, these are test pilots piloting a spacecraft, and we're going to be looking right over their shoulder, and it's an incredible, like, I'm really excited to see this and to just really be with them their whole flight up to space. They'll have this, and then we'll have another burn coming up in a little less than 50 minutes from now. That'll be the second one. Will be a boost burn to really raise up that orbit as they begin to chase down the International Space Station. Then for the rest of the day, the crew doesn't have a whole lot. They'll have their evening meal, which we'll go through in a little while, and then it'll be time for bed. They'll have about 8 hours scheduled for sleep, and then they'll be able to wake up tomorrow and do that final approach and docking to the International Space Station. So it's already been a long day for them. They've only got a few more things, and then they'll be able to kind of kick back and enjoy outer space for a little bit.
Yeah. And like we said before, this far-field manual flight test that's coming up is the opportunity for them is the opportunity for Bob and Doug to take manual control of the Dragon spacecraft, just to demonstrate that it is possible to do so in the event that they need to steer it themselves. This is a demonstration mission, so this far-field manual flight test is actually one of our big test objectives for this mission. So that'll be really exciting to see. But touching on the point that Dan said, which, by the way, that test should be coming up in a...
And Dragon SpaceX, for awareness, we're back on board.
Dragon copies. Welcome aboard.
All right, so that was the confirmation that we should be getting camera views inside the cabin once again. And there we got them. So we can see they're looking at their touch screens, preparing for this manual test that will be coming up in about 30 seconds. What a sight. I love that we can see right over their shoulders. We can see the screens.
Yeah, it's just incredible. If you keep your eye on the displays, the one on the far left will look very familiar to you if you've done that automated, or not, if you've done the manual docking demo that we were talking about a little bit earlier on the SpaceX website. Doug Hurley's going to be at the physical controls, so he's going to be the one flying today.
Dragon SpaceX, if you are ready, we're going to command far field pointing.
Here we go.
We are ready.
Copy. I'll give you the go after the transition is verified.
So again, they're going to put Dragon into a far field pointing.
Copy.
So they're going to put it into a special configuration just to let the flight computer know that, hey, this manual flight test is happening, and then the flight computer won't be trying to fight it or adjust the attitude at any point during this. And again, all of the inputs that Doug is going to make as he's doing the manual flying, they're not going to send those final commands to the flight computer. So when they're done, flight computer takes back control of the spacecraft, continues flying on its way to the station.
Yeah, so I would imagine that right now they must be really excited to conduct this test. Bob and Doug are test pilots. This is what they live for. And for them to have the opportunity to test out a completely new vehicle, this upcoming test is certainly something that I'm sure they've been looking forward to.
So we're just going to continue to stand by. We'll get this test started. We'll be hopefully over their shoulder the whole time, and we'll bring you the results after it's concluded.
Okay, Dragon SpaceX, we'll see you in far field pointing. You are go to perform manual piloting test per 4.042, far field manual piloting. The test must be completed by 21:26.
21:26. Okay, we copy. We've got to go for 4.042. We'll put that in work and understand the test needs to be completed by 21:26 Zulu.
Good read back.
This is Mission Control Houston. For those of you watching, Bob and Doug are inside the Crew Dragon vehicle performing the manual flight test. You can maybe see a little bit on the front screens here from the inside cabin. Bob and Doug manually piloting the Crew Dragon. They're in something called local vertical, local horizontal. If you were to orbit around the Earth and not be in LVLH, you'd pretty much be staying at the same attitude as you orbit the Earth. The LVLH attitude pretty much points you towards the horizon, so you can follow the horizon as you orbit the Earth. This is a demonstration that Bob and Doug are conducting now. In the event that they were to take manual control, they can regain their attitude, point it towards the horizon of the Earth. Everything seems to be going according to plan. You can hear some of the Dragon teams saying they might be smiling a little bit as everything's going towards the manual flight test and right according to plan. They had trained for this a lot on the ground in various simulations. Doing this manual test in orbit will give a nice relative perspective on how the Dragon performs in simulations versus the real thing. This is the first of two manual flight tests, the first one being a far field demonstration pointing toward the horizon of the Earth. It's called far field because it's far from the International Space Station. There's one more called the near field, and it's, you guessed it, close to the International Space Station. Dragon will point its way towards the International Space Station and perform a manual flight test, essentially changing its orientation in various axes, X, Y, and Z, and making sure that control is as expected. That coming up a little bit closer to docking. Right now, everything's looking good for this manual far field flight test. test. From here in Mission Control Houston, we're watching very closely. Back over to you over in Hawthorne.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Hey, thanks, Gary. Yeah, they are still going through that manual flight test again. This is their very first time to be at the controls of Dragon. They're putting it into that LVLH, so they're literally just using the Earth as kind of their guide point to realign Dragon. So they're essentially flying over it like an airplane when they're in this configuration. The nose cone of Dragon pointed forward into their velocity vector, so the direction that they're going. And then the bottom of the spacecraft, or essentially where Bob and Doug's feet are when they're in their seats, is pointing back down towards the Earth. So they're just sending commands to the thrusters, primarily those service section thrusters. There's 12 of them around the lower part of the Dragon spacecraft that are used for what we call attitude control, which is what they're testing out right now. And they're just going to continue to do this. And this is really their last major task for the day.
And it has been a day for sure. After they perform this test, they will have the opportunity to have their evening meal. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but it's safe to say that if I were an astronaut, I would definitely have an appetite right now, and I would most certainly be looking forward to having my dinner.
Yeah, our video views on board Dragon will be a little broken up over the flight there. We'll obviously get a lot of great views of the spacecraft on its final approach to the International Space Station tomorrow morning, which we are going to be looking forward to. Again, it's about a 19-hour trip from launch till docking. We'll be looking forward to that docking tomorrow morning.
Something to note, we will be staying on air for the entire time until Bob and Doug hop on the International Space Station. So I know that this will certainly be setting a personal record in terms of longest webcast that I've participated in. I think second place was the Demo 2 Splashdown, or excuse me, the Demo 1 Splashdown webcast. But yeah, we will certainly be live this whole time, bringing you updates from Bob and Doug as they approach the International Space Station and eventually climb on board.
And we'll be live even overnight as they go through their sleep period. Be bringing you just some highlights from throughout the day, including what we're seeing right now. And then we just really want to stay with them the whole way just to make sure everything is going well with their flight as they make this historic first trip on a commercial spacecraft to the International Space Station. But right now, we're back inside the cabin. Doug Hurley on the left there, Bob Behnken on the right. Doug Hurley sending inputs to the Dragon spacecraft through that touchscreen and then manually adjusting. You can see right in the center of his crosshair, it looks like the screen is kind of split in half between light and dark. The light part of the screen in the bottom, that's planet Earth.
And SpaceX Dragon for 4.042, we see ourselves down through step 2.6. We'll have some comments on the thermal camera blanking out during the maneuver, which was different from training, but other than that, we think we are ready to move on to section 3.
Copy. Yeah, we saw those flickers as well, and we are ready to copy your words and copy you're moving into section 3.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and pick up in section 3. Here comes Farfield Coast.
Copy.
And we're down to 3.4, SpaceX. We're ready for you to command back to far wait.
Copy. And Dragon, SpaceX for displays.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is to mitigate a risk for a benign command being sent. We'd like you to go to audio settings from the display you use for manual piloting and adjust the gain setting for seat 1 or 4.
Okay, that's complete, and I did it on seat 1.
Copy. And expect the transition to far weight momentarily.
Okay, copy that.
And this is the team coming to you from Hawthorne. It does look like they've just about wrapped up this manual flight test. So again, we're able to watch Doug Hurley, the commander of Demo 2, take control of the Dragon spacecraft using those touchscreen displays. At this point, they're handing control back to Dragon's flight computers, and that'll be the last major task for them other than dinner.
Yeah, so as we can see on their screens there, they are completing, and like we mentioned before, we do have a simulation available online if you want to check out what it's like to steer Dragon manually yourself. Just head on over to, I believe it's iss-sim.spacex.com.
Yep, that's the one. And at this point, you've seen what the actual Dragon controls look like. So the ones online will look very familiar. Looks like we did just lose that ground station connection, so the video drops out inside the cabin. But that's one major flight test in the book. That's one of our major milestones for this mission. Again, it's a demonstration mission, so we're trying to really put the Dragon spacecraft through the paces. The next thing that's going to be coming up for them is their first meal on board Dragon.
Yeah. So just real quick, that view that you see there on your right-hand side, that's coming to us live from the International Space Station, Bob and Doug's ultimate destination for this particular mission.
Dragon SpaceX, you are now back in far weight. You're welcome to start your meal at your discretion. We've reconfigured interior cameras to no interior, and enjoy your new spaceship.
We are definitely doing that. Yeah, let us do a little housekeeping and get a little bit of dinner, and we'll call you back and bring you on board once we get everything cleaned up. But it's been a spectacular spaceship so far. Congrats to the Dragon teams and obviously everybody there in Hawthorne that's done all this work to get us up here.
Thanks, guys. Boost burn is in 30 minutes, and next time you'll hear from us, it will be with Laura.
Just like to say thanks to you, Jay, and Jason, and the whole Ascent team. It was quite a ride. We'll certainly tell you about it when we have a little debrief on board station. And yeah, everybody go home and one thing, just kind of remember this moment. It's been pretty incredible, and you guys have a great night.
Thanks. You too, and we'll be following along.
So what we heard there, a little bit of back and forth between mission controllers here in Hawthorne. Behind me and Bob and Doug chasing down the International Space Station. We had confirmation that far field went well and that the capsule was put back into its autopilot, essentially. So they will now be starting up their evening meal. Okay, guess there was no comms there. So like I said, they're going to start their first meal on board Dragon. They have enough food on Dragon for 12 meals, along with the snacks for the trip up. As we heard Bob and Doug describe before launching, the food is similar to MREs or meals ready to eat, which that's what they consume during their time in the service with the military. So their MREs are essentially prepackaged meals that are ready for consumption without any heating or addition of any ingredients. They, of course, also have about 30 liters or 8 gallons of water up there with them.
Yeah, it's just the food to kind of get them to the space station. Once they arrive on board, all of their food is waiting for them, and they'll be enjoying the same menu that long-duration crew members have on board. It has quite a bit of variety, and it's a lot of thermostabilized or dehydrated foods or irradiated foods. So really just made to be shelf stable, so have a really long shelf life. A lot of the food that flies to station is good for at least 2 years. And they're able to extract a lot of the water from the food before they fly it, which saves on weight. And we all know that weight means more fuel, which means more money when we're launching things into space. Weight is everything. And once they're on board, they can just add water back into the food through special water dispensers on board the station and just heat it up. And they have everything from shrimp cocktail to they get pretty cool holiday meals. I know they always get turkey and stuffing and things like that on Thanksgiving. So they'll just have that once they get on board.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear what kind of food is available on the International Space Station. And depending on your mission as an astronaut, you could be up there for a few weeks or a few months. So it's safe to say that I can certainly appreciate the excitement we see on their faces when they open up a Cargo Dragon mission that has fresh oranges, because that isn't really a standard option available to them. So it's pretty awesome that we're able to send them treats like that, that puts it into perspective in terms of what is available and what space food actually entails. It's not all just dehydrated ice cream, although I am a sucker for dehydrated ice cream.
Yeah, coincidentally, the biggest thing that they usually look forward to is ice cream flying up in some of the cold packs on spacecraft like the Cargo Dragon. So always a treat for them. We haven't heard if they're bringing up any special treats for Chris and their Russian crew members, but I'm sure, again, we'll follow along the crew members on their social media, and we absolutely encourage you to do so. Both Bob and Doug are on Twitter, and you can go check them out and follow their entire mission throughout and just see what they're doing in space every single day.
Yeah, they're also both on Instagram. And I have found that their posts have been really interesting over the last few days. I got a chuckle when I saw Doug post the breakfast, steak and eggs. I always wondered what they would be eating the day of, and what really fascinated me was that NASA has plates. I was not expecting there to be a NASA plate being served to them, and I just thought that was a nice little insight into their life as preparing for Demo 2.
Yeah, the meatball's everywhere right now. It's everywhere.
I personally, I'm a big fan of the worm. I'm certainly with my co-host Lauren Lyons on Team Worm there from the earlier webcast. Just real quick, we have a tweet that we would like to share with you all. Proud to yield the title of the last commander of an American-launched spacecraft to @AstroDoug, who, with @AstroBenkin, has returned U.S. to space from KSC after 3,252 days. Well done at commercial crew and SpaceX.
Yeah, and of course, so that tweet comes from Chris Ferguson. He was the commander of the very last shuttle mission, STS-135, which Doug Hurley was his crewmate and his pilot for. Chris Ferguson works with our other commercial crew provider, Boeing, and he's been instrumental in the development of their Starliner, and will be on the first Starliner mission to carry people along with NASA astronauts Mike Fink and Nicole Mann. So really cool. It's really just kind of a big space flight family. We all like it when each other succeed, and so it's really great to see those words from him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we said, the crew will be coming up to their evening meal. Like we mentioned before, they are MREs, or meals ready to eat, which is what Bob and Doug both would have consumed while they were serving in the military. So they would be pretty familiar with this. I associate MREs with kind of like camping food, your granola bars, the things that you can just pull out of your backpack and eat on the way. No water added, no temperature changing, just straight out of the package. So yeah, that's about what they should be doing now. As we are, let's get a quick check. We're approaching the T+2 hour mark here in a few minutes. So gosh, I can't believe that we lifted off 2 hours ago practically. Time has flown and stayed still all at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like it. I mean, in addition to that meal, though, the other major milestone we're going to be looking for is the second of our 5 burns to get to the International Space Station. It's going to be the boost burn. That's coming up at about 2:42 p.m. Pacific time, or in about 22 minutes or a little bit more. So we're going to be looking out for that. We're going to be following each of these burns as they happen, as those are really the critical mile markers essentially on the flight to the International Space Station. After a calculated amount of time based off of our orbital data, they're going to do this boost burn, and that's going to raise Dragon's orbit to just about 10 kilometers lower than the station itself. A little while after that, they're going to do what's called the close co-elliptic burn, and that's going to place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the station. That just means we're maintaining constant altitude, or an orbit roughly 10 kilometers below the station itself.
Exactly. The boost burn is targeted to start at 12:43 a.m. Pacific, and will last a little more than 7.5 minutes. After this burn, Bob and Doug will be in an orbit that at Dragon's apogee, or the highest point, will be just 10 kilometers beneath the station. We'll have just 3 major burns after that left to complete, before we get to the integrated operations and Dragon's final approach to the International Space Station.
Yeah, so really exciting, things going really smoothly so far. We were spoiled with a really beautiful launch and a ride uphill, Dragon being carried into orbit by that Falcon 9 rocket. We've already completed our first successful burn, and that was the phase burn, which was just about an hour ago. It was completed successfully at 1:16 p.m. over here on the West Coast. The manual far-field flight test, so Bob and Doug taking control of Dragon, Doug Hurley at the controls, changing Dragon's attitude, or its pointing, to put it in a very specific orientation, done successfully. And right now the crew stepping into that evening meal, and we're just going to continue to count down until we get that next boon, the boost burn. I've been talking for way too long.
You must be very tired at this point.
Very amped up still. We've got Americans in space on an American spacecraft. They'll launch on an American rocket from American soil. So, I mean, it's a great day so far. And we've got a long flight ahead of us still, and a lot of things that we need to do in order to make it to the International Space Station on time, but everything going really smoothly. It actually looks like they're getting ready to do a handover inside the flight control room here in Hawthorne, and I know the teams over in Houston also getting ready to do that handover. And then on this ground track, we do just want to point out for you how to see where Dragon is. You can see it pretty much right in the center of your screen over the very northern part of Africa, the small circle with the Dragon capsule in it. So we'll continue to have this up throughout the flight just so you can help track where Bob and Doug are over planet Earth at any given time. And pretty soon they'll be lining up pretty closely with the space station itself, which right now is a couple hundred miles ahead of them. It's actually already over the northern part of Africa, crossing just over the eastern part of Libya, about to swing over the corner of Egypt, and then out over the Sudan.
Yeah, depending on where you are as you're following along with our journey this afternoon or this evening, depending on your location tonight, if you spot that it might be in your area, take a walk outside and see if you can glimpse it. The International Space Station is surprising to most people. It's actually really quite visible to the naked eye. If you're in the right place at the right time, and the sunlight is reflecting off of these solar arrays. If you're super lucky, you might even be able to catch a glimpse of Dragon following it. Like we said, Dragon is chasing down the International Space Station, and on previous instances for Dragon cargo missions, I have been able to see Dragon chasing the International Space Station, and it's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it's always a surreal feeling to look up and know that there are people.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the magical things about when you see the space station flying overhead. There are people on that thing, and now you might be able to look up. It'll probably be hard with the Crew Dragon because they don't have the large solar arrays able to reflect light, but we'll be getting some really spectacular views of Dragon as they make that final approach tomorrow morning. But for right now, things a little bit quiet. We are a little over 17 minutes away from that boost burn. The crew on board, Bob and Doug, moving into their evening meal. And we might have a little bit of chatter between them and the ground over the next couple of hours. They are scheduled to go to sleep, though, wrapping up a pretty long day in a few hours.
That boost burn that we were talking about, we're looking for that to start at 2:42 p.m. Pacific, so in almost exactly 20 minutes.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're getting a live look at the inside of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. You were just hearing over from Hawthorne that the teams there are about to enter into a handover. We're going to do the same here in Houston from the International Space Station Flight Control Room. That is one of 3 operational rooms that we're going to be using throughout the flight of the Dragon. Now, because of COVID-19, we actually opened up all 3 operational rooms to control the flight of the International Space Station with the ultimate goal of ending up right back here in Ficker 1 for docking. Very shortly, we'll be handing over to the blue flight control room. Last time maybe you have seen this room was during the flight of Exploration Flight Test 1, or EFT-1, the first test flight of Orion back in 2014. The teams here will hand over to the blue flight control room, then to the white, and we'll end up back here for the docking of Dragon with the same team you see here, led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville. Zebskovo gave some kind words to the teams here of Orbit 2 that oversaw the launch and took part in this historic mission today, and offered some congratulations to the SpaceX teams over in Hawthorne, congratulating them on a job well done and setting a new standard for the future of operational missions. Really looking forward to not only commercial flights, but ultimately this is maybe what the moon looks like. Now, Chris Cassidy aboard the International Space Station is about to enter into his designated sleep period. He's shifting a little bit from Bob and Doug, entering into his sleep a little bit earlier than the two crew members aboard Dragon are. But just before entering into the sleep period, he was able to say some kind words to Bob and Doug, even make a joke, and I'm paraphrasing here, that I think they just wanted to delay so they didn't have to do the cleaning duties aboard the space station today. Saturday is usually designated for cleaning the space station. Bob and Doug taking their time getting to orbit, but ultimately getting up there today. Everything going according to plan. So again, flight control teams here in Mission Control Houston about to hand over to the new teams over in the blue flight control room. We're counting down to the
Dragon
boost burn. We'll be
SpaceX,
following
boost
every
burn.
step of the way, entering into... We'll be entering into orbital, into joint operations here soon.
Laura,
Before that
it
boost
is,
burn, I'll toss it back over to
outstanding
Hawthorne.
to hear your voice from space. How are you today?
I am doing wonderfully. I am so happy to be talking to you guys today.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear your voice, and we're ready for the boost burn words.
Yes, Doug, SpaceX is go for the boost burn, and you can monitor per your displays.
Copy, go for the boost burn. And Laura, from Dragon, it's great to be...
We're with you on 2.
Josh, any expectation of changes to the timeline tomorrow, or what's on board we think is pretty solid?
Doug, from SpaceX, are you still with us?
And Chris, as far as we know it,
we
as
got you
you
loud
see
and clear.
it, I'm
We
not
had
aware of
a
any change.
temporary LOS for a teacher's handover. Can we have your words one more time?
Yeah, it's just great to be talking to you and Chris and the whole team as we work our way towards our first bedtime in space.
Yeah, we are looking forward to that. We'll talk about the rest of the timeline in between the next 2 burns, and we'd also like to tag up quickly on the media event in between those burns when we're complete with this first one.
That sounds good.
So we are a little over 9 minutes now away from that boost burn. You heard the oncoming core here in Mission Control in Hawthorne talking to the crew, Bob and Doug. They're about 9 minutes away from that boost burn. In 2 minutes, we're going to hear them do what's known as a slew or a maneuver to the burn attitude. So the Dragon spacecraft will reorient itself to be in the proper attitude to fire the Draco thrusters in the correct direction for this upcoming burn. The boost burn is going to last about 2.5 minutes is the planned timeline for it, and that's going to just raise Dragon's orbit up until it's about 10 kilometers lower than the station itself. It won't be 10 kilometers directly below, but its overall orbit will be at an altitude of about 10 less than the International Space Station.
Yeah, like I said before, that burn is targeted to start here in exactly 10 minutes, and it'll last a little more than 7.5 minutes. But yeah, after this upcoming burn, we'll have just 3 more burns left before we get to the integrated ops operations for Dragon's mission to the International Space Station.
That's right. So we'll have this burn, and you heard them refer to a media event. We might be having Bob and Doug bring us inside Dragon just to offer a couple of words. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. It all depends on just kind of how they're feeling for the rest of the day. But they are just wrapping up their first meal. We'll have this burn, and then pretty soon it'll be time for them to actually go into their sleep schedule. They try to not do any of these burns as much as possible while the crew is asleep because you can hear those thrusters firing.
They're loud.
We actually were able to hear what it sounds like when those thrusters fire. When we were up in the crew training room, they have this really cool setup where they just have a speaker where they've recorded what those Draco thrusters firing sound like. So the crew already knows what to expect, what they're supposed to be hearing when this vehicle is firing off those engines. So they're going to be just kind of monitoring. They're getting all of their insight into the burns, how it's going, when it's happening through those displays right in front of them. They don't have to do anything. Everything is automated with these burns. It's just Dragon charting the course to station all on its own.
Exactly. And as we've said before, everything about approaching the International Space Station is a highly choreographed dance, essentially. Nope, no comms there, false alarm. And these burns that we have, it would be easy to assume that the only thing that you're planning for is the hardware. And now we are taking into account in this choreography is the sleep schedule and the eating schedule of Bob and Doug, which, like I said before, we really want them to be as well rested as possible and happy whenever it is time to begin the approach to the International Space Station. So the fact that, as Dan just said, that we try to coordinate the scheduled sleep, like I said, they're scheduled for 8 hours. Once they, the fact that there's a strict 8 hours in the choreography based on a little bit around where these burns take place, because we want them to be rested, and that would very likely be something that wakes you up.
Yeah, but for now, we're just going to continue to stand by for a few more minutes. Should be just about 5.5 minutes per the timer from that boost burn beginning. And again, it's going to be a couple of minutes of those thrusters on the Dragon spacecraft firing. This is what we consider a delta velocity burn, so a change in Dragon's velocity, which you do in order to change its orbit. You need to change your velocity anytime you're going higher or lower in orbit over planet Earth. And so it's going to be using those forward bulkhead thrusters. And so those are the 4 thrusters in the very top of Dragon, which were covered up by the nose cone prior to that being opened right after we got on orbit. And then it'll use those service section Dracos just to maintain a good attitude, make sure it's pointing in the correct direction while this burn's underway. So we should be under 5 minutes away. We'll be standing by. Hopefully we get our second of 5 burns in the book in just a couple of minutes. And then it'll be just kind of the last few items for the crew to do before they head into their sleep period.
So here at the T plus 2 hour and 19-minute mark, we are about 2 minutes away from, or excuse me, we're approaching, wow, we're coming up to the close burn. And like I said before, that will take place for a few minutes.
Dragon SpaceX for boost burn performance.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Doug, the boost burn is complete and was nominal.
Dragon copies, nominal boost burn.
And Doug, just a quick question for you. Wanted to know if you guys were ready for us to come back on board.
Yeah, we're enjoying some dinner, but you are welcome on board.
Copy. We'll enable the video.
All right, so everything that we had there was all good news, confirmation that the boost burn was nominal. And again, that was intended to raise the orbit to just 10 kilometers lower than the station. So it hasn't caught up to the station just yet, but in terms of the relative orbit, the Dragon capsule should now be roughly 10 kilometers below the International Space Station. So that's in contrast to only being 10 kilometers below the station during Dragon's apogee, or, let me back up a little bit. Will be the next major event that we'll have will be the close co-elliptic burn. So good news that the second of the 5 major burns that we have was nominal. We also heard there that Bob and Doug are in progress with their evening meal, and maybe we'll be able to get some cabin shots of them enjoying their MREs.
Actually, I don't know if people can hear me right now. My microphone died for a little while there. I'm sorry,
good now.
everybody, but yeah, so we're two of the burns down. That phase burn and that boost burn complete. The next one coming up, as Kate was saying, that close co-elliptic burn, and that's really just going to round out our orbit. So right now we have a pretty significant disparity between the apogee and the perigee, so the highest point, the lowest point of our orbit. That close co-elliptic burn is just going to round it out, so we're pretty much on a constant altitude below the International Space Station. That'll be 10 kilometers. So 2 out of 5 down, everything continuing to go really smoothly. Bob and Doug sound like they're enjoying their new spacecraft quite a bit. They're in their meal. We should hopefully get, we're calling it a media event, but they might be able to bring us on board using one of the floating cameras inside just to say hey to everybody watching. So we hope you do stick around. We'll get some more live looks with Bob and Doug inside, and then it'll be pretty much time for them to go to sleep. So they'll have an 8-hour sleep schedule. We're going to be live with you the entire way. We'll be showing you some highlights throughout the day of everything that's unfolded up until this point, and then just giving a look ahead of what to expect when they wake up tomorrow morning and it's time to dock to the International Space Station.
Yeah, as Dan mentioned, the close burn will be the next major event that we have coming up after the crew finishes their evening meal. That's going to be happening around 3:25 p.m. Pacific, and we're hoping that just a couple minutes after that burn completes that we might be able to get some views with Bob and Doug. Maybe get a little tour of their new spaceship up there as it is chasing down the International Space Station.
Dragon SpaceX for next steps, media event, and the thermal imager flickering. Dragon SpaceX for next steps.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had had a chance to get the floater media camera out in preps for the media event.
No, we haven't yet, but we can certainly put that in work if you guys want us to.
Yeah, Doug, if you could grab that and put it somewhere that is on a non-interference basis, we'd like to do a checkout of it possibly over the next ground station pass.
Okay, Bob's going to go grab it right this second.
Okay, that sounds great. The next pass is in less than 5 minutes, so that would be perfect. And Doug, in addition, I've got some words for you on the thermal imager flickering that you saw during the manual piloting, if you are ready for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, per Nav Andrew, this is a nominal feature of the camera, and the camera is doing a self-correction, and meaning that the camera has not yet reached thermal equilibrium. And after power on, it takes about an hour after the cameras turn on to reach that thermal equilibrium. So from power on, you can expect that thermal imager to flicker every once in a while for the thermal equilibrium.
Okay. That all sounds good.
And Doug, when you're ready, the media event PDF, I'd like to talk to you about which steps you want to complete on the media event timeline.
Okay, let us pull it up.
And Doug, just want to make sure this is on a non-interference
Okay,
basis.
Laura, we've got it pulled up.
Okay, copy. If you want to delay talking about this, we can delay talking about it if you want to finish your meal.
Yeah, give us a couple minutes and we'll call you back.
That sounds great. Thanks.
And the camera is out and set up, so if you guys want to do the ground station checkout, should be ready to go.
Okay, copy. And for the setup, we're going to be changing some of the lighting configurations, so that is us from the ground.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at the inside of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. This is one of 3 that we'll be using throughout the flight of Dragon today. The team's here of Orbit 2, led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville, winding down for the day after overseeing some of the pre-launch and launch activities and some of the initial burns of the flight of Dragon on its way to the International Space Station. We'll be conducting a handover here shortly with the teams over in the blue Flight Control Room. That's one of the 3 that we'll be using. The other one's the white Flight Control Room. It'll be Flight Director Rebecca Wingfield over there leading the teams on some of the overnight shift while Bob and Doug are asleep. Chris Cassidy aboard the International Space Station, already entering his sleep period, getting a full night's rest before waking up and starting to prep the International Space Station for the arrival of Bob and Doug. A lot of that work already completed from some of the pre-work done, even for the first launch attempt on May 27th, checking out some of the monitoring tools and the communications hardware that needs to be used and checked out prior to the launch of Bob and Doug. A lot of that work done. Today, Saturday, the main task of Chris Cassidy was cleaning the space station, and of course, he's got the rooms prepped for Bob and Doug upon their arrival. We're now entering into a media event. We'll be able to see some views from inside the Dragon. Bob and Doug aboard the Dragon vehicle just finishing up their meal. They're shifting a little bit from what Chris Cassidy has experienced in terms of their sleep schedule aboard the International Space Station, but they'll be all synced up when they arrive at just about 9:30 a.m. Central Time tomorrow. Again, teams here winding down. Flight Director Zeb Scoville's Orbit 2 team will be handing over shortly to Rebecca Wingfield over in the blue Flight Control Room. Until then, we'll toss it back over to Hawthorne to take us through the media event coming up here shortly.
Thanks for that update from Houston, Gary. We're very much looking forward to getting our first glimpse inside of our Crew Dragon capsule from the perspective of Bob and Doug. In case you're just joining us, we've had a spectacular day, an on-time liftoff. Given the fact that we were once again iffy on the weather, just seeing the blue sky come out in force upon liftoff was quite a sight. And just real quick, I'll check the clock here. Yeah, we've just passed the T+.
Oh, I think we just lost your audio, Kate. I think your mic pack might have just died. But as she was just saying, and we'll make sure she can keep saying in just a couple of minutes, we had that on-time liftoff, 3:22 p.m. Eastern Time. From Pad 39A, the Falcon 9 rocket delivering Bob and Doug to their initial orbit. We haven't been tracking any issues with Dragon since they arrived in outer space. We've already completed 2 of our burns so far, 2 of 5 that are going to be responsible for getting us to the International Space Station. We did that phase burn just a few hours ago, that wrapping up at 1:16 p.m. over here on the West Coast. And then Bob and Doug also did the manual flight test, so at the controls of Dragon for the very first time, and they were able to complete that test objective successfully, putting it into a special orientation known as LVLH, or local vertical, local horizontal, literally just using the Earth itself as a guide to position themselves as they were flying. Also able to do that boost burn successfully. That wrapped up just about 20 minutes ago. It was another 2.5-minute firing of those Draco thrusters, the second of 5 burns to get us to the International Space Station. Right now, though, at this moment, the crew is still on board Dragon, and they're at the latter part of their day. It's been a pretty long day for Bob and Doug so far, but at this moment, they are just wrapping up their meal. It's the first meal by a crew on board Crew Dragon, and we'll see if they let us in on what they were eating when we get inside with them in the cabin in just a little while. The next major milestone coming up is going to be the close co-elliptic burn. And so this is just to a little bit more circularize our orbit. So we're going to be a constant 10 kilometers lower than the International Space Station. That's coming up in just under 21 minutes from now. And then assuming that that burn gets done successfully, we'll be 3 of 5 in the bag and well on our way to the International Space Station. And then we should get a chance to check in with Bob and Doug on board.
And just really, really pleased with the mission progress thus far. Like we've said before, launch today, you know, that is not where it ended. Obviously, Bob and Doug are en route to the International Space Station, but even once they, you know, hop on board the space station, it's still not done, right? We got to get them back home. So just as a reminder, this, while it will be a very long initial day of the mission, it certainly is not the conclusion. So just something to keep in mind. We will be staying live here with you on air, bringing you updates throughout Bob and Doug's journey to the International Space Station over the next, let's see, we're probably got another 15 hours left at this point, 15 and a half hours or so. And so, yeah, really exciting day. Even still, the energy in the building here at SpaceX headquarters is very much electric, you know, given the success of the day thus far. But mission control here is right next to me, to my left. We just had a shift change among the Dragon operators, and we're still going strong.
I know Gary walked us through. They're also doing a shift change over at Mission Control Houston, but I mean, you have teams working around the clock there in Houston and around the clock now for this flight uphill for Dragon. Just some of the voices that you're going to be hearing throughout the launch. Jay Aranja was the core, so essentially the Capcom here in Hawthorne that was talking to Bob and Doug. He's since handed over to Laura Crabtree, who's now on console there right behind us in the Mission Control Center here in Hawthorne. Going to be talking Bob and Doug through the last couple of hours of their day before they get ready to go to sleep. Again, they have about 8 hours timeline for them, and then they'll wake up tomorrow morning, and by that point we'll be wrapping up those fifth and final burn before we get into what we call the approach initiation. So really, the really close maneuvers in towards station. By that point, they'll only be a few kilometers below, and about 7 kilometers behind, and then they'll execute a burn that's going to bring them in really close to the space station. And by that point, we'll also be getting some views from the station, which we're always going to be looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. So there, the view on your screen on your right-hand side, that is Mission Control here in Hawthorne, California. And I believe on the left there that is our core, Laura Crabtree. And like Dan just mentioned, she would be the person that is communicating back and forth with Bob and Doug, walking them and confirming procedure, walking them on upcoming events and confirming procedure points. And yeah, so it has been a wonderful day. And getting back to the next event that we have coming up in exactly 20 minutes or thereabout, exactly almost.
About 17
and a half minutes, yeah. We're going to get to the close co-elliptic burn, or close burn. And like we've said before, that will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station. Now, as a reminder, there are 16 different thrusters available for Dragon to use for these on-orbit maneuvers. The 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters is primarily used for these bigger delta velocity maneuvers, like we would be executing here with the close burn. The 12 service section Dracos are around Dragon's base, and those are used for attitude and low impulse translational control. A mix of these have been used for each of these burns, and we of course have redundancy built into Dragon if we run into issues with any of the thrusters during the mission. So yeah, we should be coming up to that burn in about 16 minutes.
When we get there, it's going to be a fairly long one. It'll be about a 10-minute firing of those thrusters. So once it starts, we'll just continue to hear. We should get some check-ins from the core to the crew as it's going to update them. And then, of course, at the very end, we're looking out for those words, good burn, that's what we want to hear. And they're continually adjusting the timings of these burns based off of just how much Dragon's velocity changes on the way uphill. We have some pretty specific times down to the second where they're initially planned, even days or even weeks out sometimes before they launch, but they're constantly readjusting in real time just how long these burns are going to occur and how long or when they're actually going to happen. And this is just part of the nature of orbital mechanics. We're trying to hit one speeding bullet with another one as Dragon continues to raise its orbit over the next several hours.
Dragon SpaceX for close burn.
Go ahead.
Yes, we are just about 15 minutes out from the close burn. You can expect a tank transition approximately 4 minutes into the burn from land tank to orbit tanks. Additionally, there will be a cabin fan swap during the burn or just after the burn, and SpaceX is go for the close burn.
Go for the close burn, and we copy the tank swap and cabin fan.
All right, that back and forth that we just heard there between Crew Dragon and Core here in Hawthorne was basically just saying that we are go to begin the closed co-elliptic burn, which, like we said, is going to be raising Dragon's orbit.
Yeah, coming up in just under 14 minutes. The crew, you'll hear them get a lot of details in these calls, and for this crew in particular, we know that they've asked for every little tidbit about Dragon to be on their displays or radioed up to them. And literally what they were being told is just some of the different tanks that are feeding these Draco thrusters they're going to be transitioning between, and they told them they're going to have a cabin fan changeover. That's something that would be pretty audible, as just like on board the space station inside Crew Dragon, there's a lot of kind of ambient noise for these crew members, so they're able to hear things like the cabin fan, which is constantly just moving the atmosphere inside because you don't have natural convection in microgravity, so hot air doesn't rise unless so you have to actively be moving that atmosphere the entire time. And so these crew members are trained to expect to hear different sounds, different sights when they're going through these different maneuvers, and so they like to get those kind of updates from the core and the teams down here on the ground, just so they're not caught off guard for anything.
Yeah, exactly. So like we said, this will be the third of 5 major burns that Dragon will be performing, and it is the last burn that will be occurring before Bob and Doug go to sleep. They've already had their meal. They will hopefully be giving us a little tour of Crew Dragon here in the next several minutes. And then they'll have a quick medical evaluation with their flight surgeons, and then they get the okay to take an 8-hour-long nap. And again, we want to make sure that we're allowing them to the best of their ability get those full 8 hours. So that is why, we have this close burn, and then we'll do the last couple.
SpaceX Dragon.
Go ahead.
Hey, Laura, would you mind taking the cameras down for a couple minutes if it's convenient?
Sure, we can disable the interior cameras for you. I did have one additional question on the breathing masks when you have a minute.
Go ahead.
Yes, we were wondering if you had pulled them out and stowed them yet.
Yes, we have. They're right next to each of our seats.
Okay, copy. Thank you very much. And Doug, just want to confirm we do have no interior cameras configured.
Thank you.
just under 11 minutes now from that next burn. Haven't been tracking any issues with Dragon so far throughout today's flight. Hopefully we keep that up over the next couple of hours until they make their way all the way up to the International Space Station. This is going to be, as Kate was saying, the last burn for quite a while. We won't do the fourth of our 5 burns, that transfer burn, for almost another 11 hours from now. So Dragon's going to just kind of stay in this attitude or altitude below the International Space Station, about 10 kilometers or so, roughly co-elliptic with it for quite a while, pretty much throughout their entire sleep period. And then once we get to right after their wake-up time, we'll be looking to do these final burns, and then they'll be in much closer, just about 2.5 kilometers below the station's orbit, and that'll set them up perfectly for that final approach and docking.
Yeah, we're now at this point 2 hours and 50 minutes into the mission, and it's safe to say that everything has been going extremely well, and to this point, very nominal.
SpaceX Dragon, you're cleared back on board.
Copy all. Thanks a lot. And Dragon SpaceX, when you have a minute, I'd like to sync up with you on the media event.
We are available. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so if you have the PDF open, I've got a couple of sections of talking points. I was thinking that you could get through a couple of those sections. If you have a preference, we are open to what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I think after the introductions and potentially the displays, I think whatever you guys want to do from there would probably work.
Yeah, Doug, if you want to show some good views out the windows, that might be really cool for everyone.
We definitely plan to do that if we're still in a day pass. That'll be cool.
we should have some good views for you during that ground pass.
Excellent.
So, Doug, if you guys can get through section A, B, and maybe C, and just as a reminder, about 2 minutes from LOS on the ground station, if there is a break in your voice comms, I'll give you a reminder of that 2 minutes.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
All right, this is the team from Hawthorne. We are just under 2.5 minutes from this next burn. It's the closed co-elliptic burn. This will be the third out of the 5 that we're looking to do on our flight up to the International Space Station. We've done 2 of them successfully so far, and this will be the third. This is going to raise the apogee, or the highest point of our orbit, to about 10 kilometers below the International Space Station. Or actually, we already did that with the boost burn. This is going to circularize our orbit, so we're at a constant 10 kilometers below the International Space Station. And so this will be a pretty long burn. It will be just under 10 minutes. And so we'll check it out. We'll hear when the burn initiates, and we'll get some updates from the teams. And the crew on board, Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley, should get some calls based on how the burn is going. And then, of course, at the very end, we want to be looking out for those words nominal burn or good burn. Counting down, we should be 1 minute away from this burn. "30 seconds to the burn." Less than 10 seconds standing by for confirmation that the burn has started. And so we're seeing data this burn has begun. Again, this is the close burn. We are expecting these Draco engines to fire for about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes total. So the burn has begun. We'll continue to get status updates on it throughout.
Yeah, so right now, Dragon is firing the 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters. And like I mentioned before, we use these primarily to help Dragon in the delta velocity maneuvers that, require bigger changes. There are a total of 16 Dracos on Dragon. The other 12, so we got the 4 that are firing right now. The other 12 are located in the service section, and that's the part of Dragon that is around the base. And those are used for attitude and low impulse translational control.
And right now we're coming up on 2 minutes since the start of the burn. Again, we're expecting just under 10 minutes. If you're watching on NASA TV or on the NASA public channel, we do have our post-launch news conference coming up in just about 5 minutes. So we'll have a number of personnel from down there at the Kennedy Space Center. We'll have Administrator Bridenstine and the manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, Kathy Leaders, and then a representative from our partners at SpaceX, along with Kirk Shireman, the manager of the International Space Station Program, and the NASA Chief Astronaut Pat Forrester. Again, if you're watching the coverage on NASA TV, on the public channel, that'll be coming up in about 4 minutes. For those of you still following us along on the SpaceX channels, our operational coverage is going to continue. We have this burn already started. It's the third of our 5th, and we are coming up, we're just past 2 minutes and 50 seconds into this burn.
And if you've stayed with us this long throughout the entire webcast, we thank you. It has certainly been an exciting day, but just another thing for you to look forward to. In about 10 minutes, we're hoping to be able to chat with Bob and Doug and get some views from their point of view inside of Dragon and hear more about how the ascent phase went for them.
Yeah, this is the first time we're really going to hear from them. They've been fully in operational mode the entire time, talking with the team down here in Hawthorne, so they're going to bring us on board. We heard a couple of the exchanges, even going to give us a look out the window. We should maybe even be getting a sunset, which will be pretty spectacular. But we're going to get to that after this burn is complete. We're almost at 4 minutes since the burn begun. And again, all told, it'll last just under 10 minutes. All right, we're a little over 5.5 minutes into this burn. Again, right now we're doing the close co-elliptic burn. So the highest point of Dragon's orbit at this point brings it about 10 kilometers lower than the International Space Station's altitude. Not directly below it at this point. We're still pretty far behind it, but we'll be about 10 kilometers below. This burn is just to raise the lowest part of Dragon's orbit, the perigee, up until we'll be on what's called a co-elliptic orbit. So our orbit is at a lower altitude, but it maintains pretty much the exact same lower altitude as the International Space Station. So we'll be on an elliptical orbit, so not a perfect circle, but we'll be at a steady 10 kilometers lower than the space station itself. And this will be the third of those 5 burns. This will be the last one we do for about 10.5 hours, because after this one, the crew will be getting ready to go to sleep. And then right around when they're waking up, we'll get into the 4th and 5th burns, the transfer burn and the final co-elliptic. And that'll put us well within reach of the International Space Station. And we'll be starting all of that approach, rendezvous, and docking. So everything going well so far. We're 7 minutes into this burn. Should be just a little over 2.5 minutes to go. And we'll be standing by for confirmation of good burn once it's complete.
Based on our global tracker, it looks like Bob and Doug are now traversing over Southern California. They just came out of the Pacific Ocean and now over land. So I'm very curious to see what kind of shots we're going to get during our little tour of Crew Dragon.
Should have gone outside and waved.
It's not too late. It's probably too late.
Yeah, they're moving nearly 17,000 miles an hour at this point. Again, pretty much the same speed as the International Space Station. They're starting off a good ways below it and a good ways behind it. But in 19 hours from launch to contact with the station, that's all it's going to take for them to get to their new home for the next several months. Just crossed 8 minutes into the burn. Again, this all told will be just a shade under 10 minutes.
The completion of this burn will be the third of 5 major burns that Crew Dragon will be performing. Again, this is all autonomous. Dragon is self-steering. So after this after this particular burn completes, Bob and Doug will, within the next hour or two, be on their way to La La Land.
Yeah, on their way to their first sleep inside Dragon. They'll first have about an hour of what's known as pre-sleep, and anyone familiar with schedules on the International Space Station, you'll know they have pre-sleep and post-sleep. And it's really just free time for the crew members themselves. A lot of them in their pre-sleep, it could be eating your dinner, just kind of getting ready for bed, brushing your teeth, all of those kind of normal household things you do. They're also doing them in space, and it's really just an hour for them to get ready, and then they'll have a hard scheduled 8 hours. They won't probably fall asleep right at the start of that sleep period, but they get 8 hours until they wake up. And we should hopefully be getting, I don't want to spoil it now, but we might be getting some wake-up music hearkening back to our space shuttle days. So you'll have to make sure you tune in when they wake up. The crew wake up right now is targeted for 1:45 a.m. Pacific. And we're standing by for the finish of that burn.
Dragon SpaceX for closed burn performance.
Go ahead, and you're a little bit weak.
Copy, how now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so the closed burn is complete and was nominal, and I have a couple more words for you on the media event.
Okay, copy, nominal burn, go ahead.
The request is for the 2 task lights in 2 and 3, so your task lights for your seats, to be turned off prior to the media event. And additionally, we have a request to talk about the zero-G indicator that you guys took on board with you.
We already had that in the script. And the task lights are off. Thanks.
Copy, thanks.
And we are ready anytime. If you guys want to do the count, it looks like the ground station will be up in about a little over a minute. Just let us know.
Yep, we will give you a call.
All right, we had a successful close burn, so that's 3 down, 2 more to go, but we won't get to those until tomorrow when it's time for the crew to wake up. That's going to do it for me for now. I'm going to hand off to my colleague Leah Cheshire, who's going to be hanging out with Kate and everybody else following along as we get ready for the crew to go to sleep. First, we're going to have that really cool media event. I just heard they plan to tell us what that zero-G indicator, some of you might have seen a very sparkly dragon floating around inside the capsule. We're finally going to figure out what that is. So I'm signing off, but I'm going to stick around just to watch that because I still don't know and I really need to know. But it's been an amazing day. It was an amazing launch. I'm going to be back when it's time to dock. Thanks everybody for sticking with us. You're in great hands with Kate and Leah for the next couple of hours. I'll see you soon.
All right, see you in the morning, Dan. So like you said, we're going to be stepping into a little media event. This will be the first opportunity that we've had to hear from Bob and Doug in non-procedural communications, basically meaning that everything we've heard from them have been pretty to the T in terms of, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're feeling. This little event that we have coming up, we'll be able to see the Dragon crew capsule from their perspective and get a little bit more info about how they felt on the way up.
Dragon SpaceX, we are ready for your verbal count. Hold the cabin mic in front of your face with your mouth visible to the camera and count verbally to 15.
One, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
And Dragon SpaceX, we will give you a call when we're ready.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go to begin the media event.
Dragon copies. Well, everyone, welcome aboard Dragon. My name is Doug. Next to me is Bob. You probably know him. We're so glad to be with you this evening and welcome you on board Dragon. Got a couple things we want to talk about first before we kind of show you around. The first is kind of a tradition we've had over the years with spacecraft going way back to the Mercury era. And then a tradition that's been carried on ever since with all our space vehicles, including the Soyuz. We're given the honor to name this capsule. I know most of you at SpaceX especially know it as Capsule 206, but I think all of us thought that we could maybe do a little bit better than that. So without further ado, we would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour. We chose Endeavour for a few reasons. One, because of this incredible endeavor NASA, SpaceX, and the United States has been on since the end of the shuttle program back in 2011. The other reason we named it Endeavour is a little more personal to Bob and I. We both had our first flights on Shuttle Endeavour, and it just meant so much to us to carry on that name. That's what we decided to go with. So we hope you enjoy that name, and once again, welcome on board.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome aboard Endeavour, the SpaceX vehicle headed to the International Space Station. Today, we accomplished the first flight off the Florida coast in quite some time, and Doug and I were really proud to have an opportunity to be a part of that. We're doing it in a brand new spaceship, a spaceship that's a lot different than its namesake Endeavour, the space shuttle, in that it has touch display screens that allow us to accomplish most of the interfacing requirements that we have. We'll have Doug pans over and points at the display in front of me. You can see the forward view that we had during the maneuvers that we most recently did. You can look out the window. It looks like the centerline camera doesn't have a lot of content on it now. We're kind of pointed into space so that the windows can see the Earth below us. But we've got the capability to interface with the vehicle, and it's kind of interesting. There's a command. This little button over here is actually what the commands are for our displays. One thing that does get lost is there is a extensive button panel down below as well. So over on this side, we can turn the displays on and off, as well as send some commands for some contingency situations. On the other side, we have the ability to deploy chutes and things like that on entry. So we do have some buttons, but the primary interface is these displays. So nice, new, modern cockpit that we've got for our compared to our namesake, the Space Shuttle Endeavour. I'm going to migrate a little bit away from our seats here, and Doug from his seat is going to continue to try to follow me so you can tell what can be seen from the seat that he sits in. So from his seat, when he is inside in the vehicle, strapped in, this is what his view actually looks like. You can see a window off to the one side. We each have a window that we can view out and see what's going on outside. That was exciting on ascent for us to be able to see the arm rotate away from the pad, and that's when we both, I think, knew that we were going to launch today. So that was super cool. I've got one on my side as well. The hatch that we came in is the hatch that's right behind me. It is a little bit of a tight quarters, but I'm going to try to demonstrate some of the capability that we have now that we're in zero gravity. So I think I was requested to do a backflip. I'm going to kind of do a side spin, which is a little bit of a permutation on that request. So hopefully you can see what it's like to actually float in zero gravity, and Doug and I are super excited that we got the opportunity to do this again today, even before the end of May. So that was super cool. We did, it turns out, end up with one stowaway on board our vehicle when we launched today. It was not just Doug and I who accomplished the launch here. We do have an Apatosaurus aboard. We both have two boys who are super interested in dinosaurs, and we collected up all the dinosaurs between the two houses, and Trimmer, the Apatosaurus, got the vote from the boys to make the trip into space today with us. And so that was a super cool thing for us to get a chance to do for both of our sons, who I hope are super excited to see their toys floating around with us on board. I'm sure they would rather be here given the opportunity, but hopefully they're proud of this as well.
Okay, as we work our way towards one of the windows, unfortunately it's getting a little bit dark, but I don't know if Bob can pan over here. We just passed off of the coast of Newfoundland, and we're headed over to over the Atlantic right now. I don't know if you can get a good picture of that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy that view as we pass over the Atlantic, and I think with that we will work ourselves back into the seats and wrap things up for this evening.
So Doug's there making a nice big smile for the camera. I hope you enjoyed the trip today with us on board the Dragon capsule Endeavour with our friend Trimmer, the Apatosaurus, and Doug and I. We just would like to thank SpaceX, we'd like to thank NASA, and we'd like to thank the American people for the opportunity today. And we're really proud of the entire team that was able to accomplish human spaceflight again from the Florida coast. Just a wonderful experience. Doug and I are just so proud to be a part of it, and just want to thank everybody who gave us this opportunity and worked so hard to make this happen today.
So with that, I think it'll be good night from Capsule Endeavour. Good night to everyone at NASA, at SpaceX, and the United States, and congratulations to the teams that got us into orbit. And we're looking forward to seeing Chris Cassidy and his Russian colleagues on board the International Space Station tomorrow morning.
Good night, Megan and Theo.
And Karen and Jack.
And Dragon SpaceX, thank you so much for that. I know everyone really enjoyed seeing Dragon and seeing how much all of you are, or the two of you are enjoying it.
It was our pleasure, Laura.
In case if you've just joined us, that was our first look inside the Crew Dragon capsule with Bob and Doug. Our first opportunity to hear what their experience has been like thus far. I think I can speak on behalf of anyone that's involved in this program that we're really honored that you guys chose such a meaningful name for the capsule, and we're very proud to have Bob and Doug, our favorite dads in space, on board Capsule Endeavour. As of now, we have completed 3 of 5 major burns, and as you heard Bob and Doug mention, they're going to be going to bed pretty soon. But we have one more thing coming up before then.
Yeah, and hi everybody, I'm Leah Cheshire of NASA, here to journey with you through these overnight hours as the crew is still on their way to the International Space Station. We've got some big things coming up. In about 45 minutes, we'll be looking for the crew to have their PMC, or Private Medical Conference. These are standard for every astronaut flying in space, and they actually date back to the Apollo missions.
Well, we're really happy to have you on board. I'm sure Dan was exhausted. And yeah, like we mentioned before, we're going to be bringing you coverage throughout the entire mission, overnight, yes, all the way through until Bob and Doug actually hop on board the International Space Station early tomorrow morning. It is a 19-hour journey to the station, and at this point we are approaching T plus 3 hours and 30 minutes. So it's safe to say they've got a ways to go, but as we just saw from that awesome look inside the capsule, it seems like they're getting pretty cozy in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good view. I mean, we got to see the whole thing. We got to see the screens and you know, their seats, which will turn into beds. Mm-hmm. Correct?
They'll stay in they will sleep in their seats, but the seats will keep the shape that they're in currently. So they will be in a bit of a chair position, different than their beds on the International Space Station. But yeah, so those PMCs, or Private Medical Conference, is basically the last thing that they have to do before they get to take a well-deserved sleep.
Yeah, they'll be able to talk to medical doctors, NASA flight doctors, they're flight surgeons as they're sometimes called on the ground, talking through their health and getting the feedback on their current status. All of the crew members have a flight surgeon assigned to their mission. The flight surgeon is dedicated to their health care throughout the duration of the mission, including training, on orbit, and when they return. That means providing remote care to the astronauts while they're in flight or on the station.
I think it's safe to say that, you know, all of us that have been experiencing the global pandemic that we have, receiving something so important as healthcare virtually, it was something new for a lot of us. But, you know, this type of healthcare procedure is standard procedure for NASA astronauts because, of course, we have to be looking out for any changes in their health and just general health checks while they're on station and, you know, the entire journey up to station. So I think this is just another...
Dragon SpaceX for camera settings.
Go ahead, Laura.
Just wanted to let you know that all the interior cameras are off and we will leave them in this configuration until post-sleep.
Okay, we copy. You'll leave the interior cameras in the off position until post-sleep.
That is correct, and we have also powered off the floater camera, so you are go to store it if you would like.
Thanks, Laura. We'll put that in work and get the floater camera stowed away and have it ready for tomorrow. And just wanted to say, good to talk to you from low Earth orbit finally, instead of just from upstairs or downstairs.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. It's nice to hear your voice in orbit rather than upstairs.
I did just want to make sure that for solidarity purposes, there's no coffee drinking or tea drinking going on down there, right?
You know, I have to take the mask off to drink coffee, so, you know, some coffee.
So that back and forth that we just heard there between Crew Dragon and Mission Control here in Hawthorne, just letting them know that all the cameras are now turned off, and they'll stay turned off until after the post-sleep, or basically until Bob and Doug are wide awake tomorrow morning. And that's just for privacy purposes, obviously, while they're doing their health check and sleeping. And you may have heard them mention the upstairs, downstairs. That is referring to our training facilities here in Hawthorne. We actually gave you a pretty cool look into those training facilities earlier in the webcast, so you might want to rewind your feed to catch up on to see what that actually looked like in person. But essentially, Bob and Doug, like we've been saying, they've been here on site in Hawthorne for months. They are part of the SpaceX team, really hitting a home run in terms of they're here training with our team. We all work as one, and it has been that way for months. They have gone through rehearsals and practices of every possible procedure that they would go through, and so that's where that upstairs downstairs comes in, because mission control would be down here as they're walking through the procedures in the upstairs training capsule. And of course, they're not allowed to drink any caffeine until they get to station, so that's a nice little thought that mission controllers might also be withholding in solidarity, but a difficult task, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been a long day for everybody, so I can understand where, I don't know, they might have to sneak one in and not tell the crew.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see.
So like we said before, we're going to the Bob and Doug, our dads in space, will be beginning their private medical conferences. Again, those are just standard for every astronaut flying in space. It happens regularly, and it's just an indication that, or their opportunity to connect with their flight surgeon. Keep in mind that the flight surgeon is assigned to their mission specifically. That flight surgeon is dedicated to their health care throughout the duration of the entire mission, including training while they're still on Earth, while they're on orbit, and throughout their entire return. So that basically means that not only do they get remote medical care while they are in space, but it also means that the flight surgeon will actually be on board the recovery vessel when they splash down in the ocean. And that flight surgeon will be the first person that they really get the chance to talk to, aside from the recovery crew members themselves. But as soon as they emerge from the capsule post-splashdown, they get another medical evaluation right there on the recovery vessel.
Yes, and so we, as we mentioned, are on our way to the International Space Station in the Crew Dragon, now named Endeavour. And keeping an eye on everything happening in Mission Control Houston for us is Courtney Beasley. We're going to toss it to Courtney. Tell us what's up, what's going on over there.
Thanks, Leah. Such an exciting day, and I'm happy to join you for coverage into the overnight hours from Johnson Space Center. Here in Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 3 team of flight controllers is on console, led by Flight Director Rebecca Wingfield. Flight controllers here in Houston are continuing to alternate the flight control rooms they are using from shift to shift to prevent contact between the members of one shift to the next. At this hour, the International Space Station crew is asleep. The trio, NASA astronaut and station commander Chris Cassidy and Roscosmos cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishyn and Ivan Wagner, went to sleep around 4:30 p.m. Central Time, just a little over an hour ago. They'll continue that sleep period until around 1 a.m. Central Time on Sunday morning, ready to begin an exciting day of work. Then around 5:35 a.m. Central Time, Cassidy has a rendezvous conference with ground controllers to review rendezvous procedures that the Crew Dragon crew will be executing later in the morning. He'll then move to begin to set up tools, and that will be just the start of a long day before the hooks are driven to form a hard mate between Crew Dragon and the International Space Station. Cassidy will then work in tandem with Bankin and Hurley to equalize pressure to ensure there's a tight seal between Crew Dragon and the International Space Station before they open the hatch to greet their new crewmates, who will become members of the Expedition 63 crew at the time they float into the Harmony module. For now, all systems are a go on the International Space Station side, so back to you, Leah and Kate at Hawthorne.
Thanks, Courtney. We'll keep checking in throughout the night as Bob and Doug continue to make their way to the International Space Station.
Looks like right now, based on the ground tracker that we just saw on your screen, they are over Central Africa. So it's pretty incredible how quickly, when you think about it, how quickly they are traveling. I said maybe I guess probably 20 minutes ago, they were over entering the coast of California, and now they're already in Africa. So it's quite incredible to think that they are going
Dragon SpaceX
so
for
incredibly
PMC.
fast in their pursuit of the International Space Station.
Go ahead.
Yes, we're setting up a PMC here on your timeline. It's in about 15 minutes. You'll have about 15 minutes for that conference.
Copy that. We can start early or whenever they're ready.
So there we heard that Bob and Doug are ready to begin their private medical conference. Even though they might be a little early, I think that might be the theme of Bob and Doug, is that whenever, they might be ready early and they want to go. I remember watching the webcast both today and on Wednesday prior to launch, and both days they just went right in the capsule a couple minutes.
And Dragon SpaceX will work to get that set up as early as possible, and we'll give you a call when we have set up for it.
Sounds good, Laura. Thank you.
I hate to say I'm never usually as early on time as Bob and Doug, but if I were them, let's go ahead and do it. Let's have some more free time, maybe get a little extra rest before I go to bed.
Yeah,
why not?
I would imagine it certainly had something to do with the excitement that was building. I can't imagine them, the feeling that they had going through everything again today and then getting into the capsule and saying, all right, today is the day that we're going to go to space. And you know what? We're there.
I know. I can't imagine sitting still for the amount of time that they have to from the time they board Dragon until they finally lift off, and just having to wait, as excitement continues to build. But you're just still on the launch pad, so.
Yeah, for sure. And as we saw in that little tour of Crew Dragon, we could see that while there was enough room for for Bob to do a backflip, it was still, not exactly enough space to really stretch out as much as they might want on a regular basis. So yeah, the confinement there, they're working around it. It's still pretty roomy, but it is definitely not a limo.
Well, it's not too bad, though. For 19 hours, I've been on some pretty long road trips, and I think I'd rather take a 19-hour trip in the Crew Dragon than I would in a minivan, so it's not so bad.